Buenas tardes.
Good afternoon. I am Viviana Centeno, here again with you, and it is my turn to present
Profesor Francisco.
teacher Francisco Herrera.
Francisco,
Francisco
psicólogo clínico transpersonal.
is a transpersonal clinical psychologist. He's a past life therapy teacher. He was trained in Dr. Cabuli School, and he is the founder of Trabajador de la Luz Center, member of AFCH de VIP, and member of the board of directors. He's a Zen therapist. He's a Reiki master and therapist in cell regeneration and massage therapy. He has an associate degree in publicity and he's a professional photographer. This time, Francisco is going to present us his vision and management of sexual abuse in past life therapy. Francisco, you have the floor. Thank you, Viviana. I'm very happy to be here. Greetings to everyone. I wanted to tell you that I'm very thankful of the opportunity that I'm given to be here and all of the people that are involved so that this happened. And I want to especially thank my patients that have come to my clinic to ask for this treatment because thanks to them, I have the honor to be here and I have the honor to cooperate in the healing of their soul. What I'm going to tell you now is the approach that I have in the healing of sexual abuse with regressive therapy, and this focus is put in the childhood, but this is useful for any time of your life, and even with any kind of trauma. The regressive therapy is very similar. The next slide. Sorry. The regressive work is complex work, and I want to put it in very simple in this talk because my intention is to approach every kind of audience so that they don't have any even though they don't have any knowledge, and for people that are going through them or a close being through sexual abuse. And now we're going to talk about my patients that have come here to talk about sexual abuse, except for a few exceptions, they're all women. Their ages in the moment of doing the therapeutical work goes from 13 to 60 years old. And the majority of them, when they got to here, they didn't have the intention to heal the sexual abuse when it happened in the childhood. And you would wonder what are they going to do if they didn't come for that. And consultation reason is very varied. There are many psychiatry diagnosis, medical diagnosis, autoimmune diseases such as fibromyalgia, cancer, psychosis, and there's a lot of them. And this is just one example of the consultation motives. The moment the patients have come here to work on a certain issue. Well, as to consciousness or the knowledge that people had of the sexual abuse that they had in childhood, a significant percentage didn't remember anything about that experience and they had totally forgotten about it. And another percentage had a lot of doubts. They remembered partially. They started started to have a lot of flashbacks with images in childhood with this experience. In another percentage, which is very important, of my patients remember it very clearly. A lot of them thought that this experience in their childhood didn't have any relation with the consultation reason of what they came here. Other, they thought it was overcome, and other people that also worked in sexual abuse in regressive therapy, they were determined to overcome this experience, and they were conscious about this experience to have a repercussion in their lives. And these were exceptional cases. Many of the patients that came to work here with me had this experience that this sexual abuse experience still affected their adult life.
Perdón,
Sorry,
esto está faltando algo.
this is missing here. Okay. I wanted to talk about the regressive therapy, as many of you may know, works on the patient's soul. And I want to briefly talk about what I consider soul to
El
be.
alma yo lo considero como la totalidad de lo que somos.
Soul, I think it is
Tiene muchos nombres que
our
son
whole being.
espíritu,
It has a lot of names,
divinidad,
spirit,
y
an
esas son algunas
entity,
diferencias.
and there
Bueno,
are
en mi trabajo
some
considero que
differences. For
el
my work,
alma es
I
todo lo que
think that the
somos
soul is
y
everything we
eso es
are,
energía.
and that is
Considero que somos
energy. And
nuestra
I
totalidad
think we are
energía
in our
pura.
whole pure
Bueno,
energy.
el alma
Well,
tiene dos
the
aspectos o
soul
podemos
has
conocer dos
two
aspectos en
sides,
el alma.
or we can
Un
know two
aspecto es el
aspects of
aspecto
the soul.
consciente,
One of them is the
donde están
conscious
los síntomas.
aspect, where
El
the
aspecto
symptoms
consciente
are.
lo percibimos a través
The
de los
conscious
sentidos físicos.
side, we perceive it through the physical senses.
Lo podemos ver,
We
sentir,
can see it, feel
escuchar.
it, we can hear it.
Y ahí están, como digo, los síntomas que
And
viene a
there
trabajar
they
la
are, the
persona, el problema
symptoms, as I was
específico porque
saying,
llega a
that
la
people
consulta.
come to work
Y
on
también el
the
alma
specific problem,
tiene un
why they come
aspecto
to the
inconsciente,
clinic. And this part of
donde
the
no hay
soul has a
experiencia física,
conscious,
pero sí hay
an
experiencia
unconscious side,
mental y
where there
emocional.
isn't a physical
No lo percibimos, por lo
experience,
tanto, a
but
través del sentido
there is a
físico.
mental one. We
Y es
don't
donde la
perceive it
experiencia nos
through the
enseña que
physical
están las
sides.
causas de los síntomas que
And
percibimos a nivel consciente.
these are the causes that we perceive
Adicionalmente,
in an
bueno, y todo
unconscious
esto está
level.
unido,
And
pero
all of
decimos
this
consciente,
is
porque ya
joined,
que no
but
accedemos
we're
al mundo
unconscious
inconsciente,
because we can
no sabemos qué es lo
assess
que está
the
en la
conscious
mayor
mind,
parte de nosotros,
and we don't know
no
what is
accedemos en la vida
most of us.
cotidiana.
We don't access
Por lo
to
general
that
estamos ahí
in a daily life.
sobre el agua,
Generally,
haciendo
we're
una
there
analogía que es el aire.
on the surface of the water,
Eh,
according to this analogy.
Ahora, adicionalmente a esto, está esto del
Additionally,
tiempo que ya ha sido nombrado
we
muchas
have
veces
time that
en todos
we
estos
have
congresos
talked
presentes.
about it many times in all of
Y
these
realmente
congresses that
yo
we've
creo que no
made.
hay que ser
And
físico
actually,
cuántico
I
para
don't think
entender
you
esto del
have
tiempo no
to
existe.
be a quantic
Eh,
physical to understand this.
Permítase por un instante verlo
Allow
así.
yourself
El
to
tiempo
see
sí
it
existe para
this way
nuestra
for an
mente
instant.
consciente.
Time does exist for
Percibimos el
conscious
tiempo.
mind. We perceive
Son los
it.
días 12 de noviembre, son un poco
And
más de las 4 de
now
la
is
tarde.
November 12th.
Esta exposición nos
It
puede durar
is
más de una hora.
afternoon. This
De alguna
exposition
forma nos
can't
regimos por el
last more
tiempo.
than an hour,
No,
and
no es
we
útil.
govern
Y lo
ourselves
percibimos
through
de
time,
forma
and it is useful,
unidireccional, de
and we
pasado
perceive it
a
in a
futuro.
unidirectional
Pero apenas nos
way,
ponemos a
past
observar
and
esto
future.
del tiempo,
But
nos
we
encontramos
can,
con un
when
contrasentido,
we observe this
con una
time,
paradoja.
we find a
Y es lo
paradox,
siguiente, que cuando
and it
pensamos en
is
el
the next
pasado, lo
one. When we
pensamos en el
think about
momento
the past,
presente.
we don't think about the
Más aún
present.
cuando yo experimenté el
And
pasado,
even
cuando
more
experimenté
when
mis
I
vacaciones,
experienced the
mi
past,
época
when
de
I
15
experienced my
años, mi época de
holiday, my
infancia,
15
cuando estoy
period,
experimentando eso también en
when
mi
I'm
mente presente.
experiencing that, it is also the present.
Es decir, lo que consideramos pasado
That
para nuestra
means
mente
when what we
consciente, para
consider the
nuestra mente
past for our
racional,
conscious mind
es
and
una
our
idea,
rational mind, it is an
es
idea.
un concepto de la
It
mente
is a
consciente.
concept of the conscious mind.
Entonces, para entender esto,
So to understand
esta
this,
paradoja,
this paradox,
podemos hacer
we
un ejercicio que
can
les propongo hacer,
do
que es
an
muy
exercise
simple,
that I
que es
propose
cambiar
for us to do.
la palabra
It is very
pasado
simple
por la
and is to
palabra
change the
experiencia.
word
Cada vez que
past for the
piensen
word
o vayan a
experience.
decir
Every time you
pasado,
think or you're
cámbienlo
going to
por la
say
palabra
past, change
experiencia.
it for experience, because an experience we can consider it timeless. The experience stays in you and it still exists in me. I can say that in this time I am the fruit of all of the experiences that I've had, at least in this life, therefore also in all of the experience of my soul. The positive and the negatives are still in this time and they haven't ended. Thanks to that, I am who I am. And those experiences that I do remember are in the conscious side, and the experiences that I don't remember are in the unconscious side of the soul. And if I had a serious trauma in my childhood, I have the soul has a protection method, and for which is forgetfulness. The fact that I don't remember it doesn't mean that it doesn't exist. In some way, it's still manifesting itself. And this is called a symptom. If I experience sexual abuse in my childhood and I haven't healed it, it's going to manifest that injury in the conscious side through symptom. Now, the question would be how to heal an injury that I can't see and I can't hear, which is in my conscious plane. And from this perspective of the regressive and past life therapy, we use a capacity that we all have, which is remembering. That is regression, to remember.
Regression starts in the conscious mind. What the patient came here to work on, what he feels, what he thinks. The way that the patient delivers the experience and what he can remember to feel again, to think again. So it can go through the heart again. So the patient, the cause in natural way starts emerging, and the conscious himself, you don't have to do anything. The patient connects automatically in the way that he's remembering, and it emerges in a natural way. And what I do as a so, doctor, I guide the patient, and the patient can relive the experience, and it comes out from the unconscious. And what happens is that the conscious stops being necessary. And the patient, when he arrives to work and the consultation, he already comes in an expanded mindset. I like to define expanded mental conscious state as a bigger conscious place. We can take notice of more things than we usually do. We are more conscious of what we usually are normally. For example, in the case of sexual abuse, the patient starts noticing of the conscience of the child that is experiencing this abuse, or what he feels, how she reacts. But at the same time, since the patient is on his expanded mind, there's the mind of the adult, and she's feeling what the child is feeling. And that's when you see the first difference on the regressive therapy, the difference between reacting and answering. The child answers from the unconscious mind, but because she doesn't feel, she's not thinking anything, she's on a shock state, she only reacts. The adult, the one that is feeling what the child is feeling and is accompanying the experience, can answer. So there's an elaborated answer. It comes from the conscious side, and that's one of the first advantages that you can work on the expanded mind state. Another thing that you can achieve with the expanded mindset is the energetic work. Energetic work, how can I explain it in this Congress, is I divide it in three parts. Release of energy, which is the first part that I'm going to explain. The second one is recovery of energy, of the fragmented soul, the energy that the aggression is holding, and third parties. And on the third place, I'm going to talk about stuck energies that are already glued to non-physical entities. Let's see how it is the energetic work, as we call conscious catharsis. Catharsis is an energy release, non-verbal energy. It's very frequent that the patient, when she's remembering and feeling what the child felt, she says that I'm petrified, I'm paralyzed, my body's stiff. So when the adult, and at the same time as the child can cry, yell, and throw a tantrum, and to express what she's feeling throughout the crying, there's a big energy release. And also that energy release is conscious release. Because it's not the same to just throw up and to throw a tantrum and not remember anything. And after being experiencing the feeling, the crying, the impotence, and express it with your body in a conscious way. When an emotion is released this way, there's an energy release that is not coming back. That's as far as the energy release through catharsis. So in the next slides, I'm going to express, I'm going to talk about the energy recovery and on the fragmented soul, on the aggressor, on the third parties, and lastly, I'm going to explain the third part, which is the work on attached energies. To explain how do you recover a fragmented soul, I'm going to do a little parenthesis, and I'm going to explain what is the fragmented soul. I'm going to say that the soul behaves as a fractal system. As you can see here, a fractal system is where the smallest part contains the information of the totality of the system. This triangle that you can see here that is made by a Polish mathematician shows that this triangle, the information is on every part of it, and even in the smallest part, there's a pattern of self similar. An abuse is an experience that is so extreme for a child that the soul cannot endure the experience, and it shatters, and it gets separated, it gets fragmented. You can see that on these schemes, very simply drawn, and the soul leaves and observe the experience from the outside. Also in normal, regular psychology, traditional psychology, this is called it's dissociation, but it doesn't explain what happens and where does this dissociated part go. The patient, when he's working on the expanded state of awareness, can see that a part of the child left the body through the experience, and he was watching the whole thing from the outside. What usually happens is that I ask the patient and say, look at this. Well, where's your soul? And the patient said, I'm not there. I left. I'm in a little corner of the room. I'm under the bed. I'm on my mother's womb. I went to the light. I went to a different past life. But the important thing is that the patient noticed that a part of the child is not on their body at the time of the experience. And that part that dissociates doesn't come back by itself. Because it's traumatized. It's thinking that the body is an insecure place to be. And it stays trapped in a time-space that is frozen. It stops evolving. That part of the soul it has been dissociated. and it's got the same. Because when I'm been working with teenagers or people with 13 years, I see I'm there, and it's had my same body. It's the same as me, and experiencing this from the outside when it's an adult person, the child is there. I can see the same age that the event happened because that child is traumatized. There's some patients that don't see it that clearly, but they're intuitive to it towards it, so and they feel it. So now I can explain what is the recovery of the soul.
Once the patient realizes that a part of their soul is outside, they can call it. The patient, in an expanded state of awareness, can call the child that is out of their body, and they talk them in a way when a person is scared. They tell them that they've grown, that a lot of time has passed, and they're living a lot of beautiful things. They have children and grandsons, and they need that part to come back, and that part comes back. For someone that listens or sees this for the first time, it seems to be something very simple and even ridiculous, but it's hugely successful. And it works 99% of the times, and the benefits are a lot. What the adult tends to say that realizes about this is, come here, I'm going to take care of you. This is no longer happening. And that's what means the recovery of the soul and energy of the shattered soul. Inside the energetic work is the energy recovery that the aggressor has. The aggressor steals a part of the soul of the child when they abuse them. And the patient with expanded state of awareness realizes that they can confront the soul of the aggressor, and they can ask what is part of them. And the adult tends to say, give me back my innocence, my peace, my joy, which are forms of energy. This also happens with the recovery of energy of third parties, which generally are paternal figures, the mother, the father, the uncle, the aunt, who didn't do what they had to do. Many of them didn't believe them, they were afraid to talk. Unfortunately, this happens. And they don't want to blame anyone because any parent does what they can, but the important thing is that the child didn't receive the protection and the love, and they are waiting for that fatherly figures. So the adult accompanies the child to tell them this to their father or mother, and they say, what you did hurt me a lot and you didn't protect me, and they feel this energy. The patient tend to say, give me back my motherly intensity, the protection, which are forms of energy, and then they can give back to their children or grandchildren because they can give something that they haven't received. So the patient starts to empower themselves. And this is work done by the patient, helped by the therapist, and they are a protagonist recovering their part of that soul that had come out of their body, and they feel empowered and they can do stuff. The patient tends to say when they recover the soul, they see color, a sphere of colors, bubbles. A patient told me there are kittens that are here in my chest coming back to me. And the other importance about this energetic work is because eventually the child, accompanied by the adult, can say or do what they couldn't do or say in that moment. And that's why we say that it is finishing that experience. It is an incomplete experience because they couldn't react, they couldn't say, they couldn't talk, they couldn't move. And that is an instance in which they recover an energy and a lot more. The soul fermentation isn't something bad, it is in a nature error. On the contrary, is a protection measure. Thanks to the shattering of the soul, we can live an experience so dramatic as a sexual abuse in the childhood. Now I'm going to see the third part in the energetic work that has to do with the attached energies. Well, and if you notice in the other slides, you can see that there is a gap, and it's like leaving the house and leaving the door open. Anyone can enter and start using the house, and that's what happened. Non-physical energy sees a vulnerability in the vibrational field of the person, and they feel vulnerable, and they attach to the vibratory field of the child because this always happens, mostly happens in the childhood, and this starts to influence the thoughts, the emotions, the behavior of the person. And since the child or the adult isn't conscious about this, they think that those emotions and their thoughts and their behaviors are from them, and that is based uh, on many different energies, external energies, because they were hurt because of the traumatic experiences. And I have found myself with many kinds of attached energies, and there are a lot of kinds of energies, and there are the opportunists. They were passing by, they saw the opportunity and they attached themselves, and the obsessors, after a while, they start to obsess themselves and they start to hurting someone, and they're the karmic obsessors, which is a non-physical entity that has a purpose, that is a revenge, and is usually from past lives. And generally, the karmic obsessor has to do with the sexual abuse. And we also have the energy of the ancestors. Apparently, for everything we have investigated and saw, the sexual abuse is transgenerationally. The patient have lived it, their mother, their grandmother, and I have found myself with the grandmother in the patient also experiencing sexual abuse experience, and it gives me the impression that it is as if the soul of these ancestors want to resolve things that they couldn't in their own life, and apparently the descendants are doing the work with their grandfathers. And finally, I have also found myself with the aggressors with this work that have all of the energetic souls and non-physical that are with the patient. Usually happens that is the energy of the aggressor with the patient skills, or at least with the way of thought with the aggressors. In these cases, what we do therapeutically is to explain to this physical entity that it hasn't had to do anything with this, and they have to go to the original source or the light. And once any of these kinds of energies come back to the light, we're not only benefiting these kinds of souls, but also the patient that stops being influenced by these strange energies. Now, I want to give an example of a dialogue with one of these energies. You can, through the patient, to have a conversation with these energies. And I want to show you a little dialogue so you can have an idea of how they act. This patient was 31 years old when she did this therapy, and it is an opportunist energy. And the entity said, I am trapped. I got here when I was a kid. She's scared. I grabbed her by the feet and I felt good. I was attracted by her sorrow. I feed from her pain. As you can see, the energy is saying that it has conscious that is trapped, that it can't leave. It is conscious about when they got there, the emotional state of the kid, and what they do with the child. And this last line is very frequent. The non-physical entity, the lost souls, the entities feed from our suffering. I can dare to say that when we're in an anguishing state or fear or in a chronic state, it's highly probable that we have these energies with us. Another part of therapy that is possible thanks to the patient working in an expanded state of awareness is the deprogrammation. When we're adults, we know that the unconscious is the biggest part of us. That means we know very little about our functioning. The most part of our emotions and processes that go through us are in an unconscious level. In the childhood, this is a lot bigger, and that's why children are so spontaneous. They don't have a filter to express themselves because they go through their unconscious level, and then their conscious level grows as they grow older. And now, in this shock state, such as in sexual abuse, they block almost completely their experience, and that makes the vulnerability to grow.
And when the vulnerability increases, we make ourselves vulnerable for mental programming. As Dr. Kabul said, the unconscious mandates. When I talk about mental programming, I'm talking about belief system, or mainly our belief system is on an unconscious level. The belief system is what I think, what I believe of myself, about others, and about the world in general. And it's something that determines the experience that I'm going to live. For example, if I believe that I'm not worth enough, the experiences that I'm going to have, I'm going to confirm that belief. And I'm going to perceive it, that the people think of me that I'm not worth enough. The same thing if I have a deep belief that the world is unfair. All the experiences I'm going to have are going to confirm that unconscious belief that I have, that the world is unfair. On the regressive work, I help the patients to be patient and identify the programming, unconscious programming, that are a product of the sexual abuse and were generated then. And you do an exploration in 3 areas: the sensations or feelings that she felt during the experience, what they said or what they do, or what they did or what the abusers did, or what other third parties do on the regressions. I'm gonna give 3 examples of what they felt and what they experienced, what the abusers did, and what the third party did or said. Here I'm going to read first the child reaction during the experience. The adult doing the experience with their child conscious realizes, I don't think what's happening is right. I'm not doing anything. I stay quiet. When I ask the adult that is doing the experience, this is what you thought when you were a child. How is this affecting you? What are the consequences on your adult life? The adult there's an insight and says the same, this following thing: I don't know if my decisions are right. I cannot feel that is what I'm doing is right. As you can see, this programmation rotates on safety, on the making, on the saying. I want to say that every programmation is different from each patient. There's nothing like a list of mandates or programations that I'm going to take them and do them myself. We create this along our experience. And this other thing that I say, that is about safety for the patient, can implicate many things. This is just like a label. of internal knowledge. I'm going to show you another example so you can understand more clearly. This is what the abuser says. The abuser says, take it easy. Nothing's happening. You're going to like it. Don't cry. When I asked the patient, and this is what the abuser said, this thing that he said, how does this affect you on your adult life? The patient realizes this thing. I cannot enjoy making love with my partner. Also, I cannot enjoy the daily life of the little things that I like. We can say that this programmation has to do with things that you do in life, pleasure. And you can see it was created on this experience, and the patients didn't connect this with the daily life. And this is another example what third parties said. The patient noticed that her mom said, my mom said that it was not an abuse, that he has raped me, and I didn't remember this. When I asked the patient how this affects his life now, and the patient said the following thing. This makes me feel like I'm always on the limit of gaining or losing weight, and I'm not looking right or looking good, and I don't want to be noticed. And we can say that this programmation has to do with the self-esteem, with the self-care. But I insist, for the patients might be much more than that.
I
want to
algunos testimonios de los pacientes que dicen un tiempo después de haber hecho la terapia.
From some patients after they've done the therapy. This was said by a patient that at the moment of this, he was 50 years old. Yes, I believe that helped me, absolutely. I feel more free sexually with my husband, and it's not something that I look at with pain, but it was something that was part of my life, only that. Was learning. Thanks for everything. The next testimony is from a patient that at the moment she did this work, she was 60 years old. This testimony is one day after she did the regression. Hello, good morning. Thank you very much. Truly, I have no words to describe what I feel. I can only say that it was a great relief, unmeasurable. Yes, I am processing this, and I'm trying not to think much. More like to feel, or to observe what comes to me naturally. By the way, it's completely free of the anguish that I feel for decades. Every patient reacts in a different way after a regression session. Some patients, as the one that we are reading here, are close to euphoria. The relief is so much that they feel the change in a very body-like perception. Some patients after the session don't say anything. Maybe they don't dare to say, they keep their comments for themselves, and then they notice that I have patients that, or people that have told me things after 6 months that they notice they have an effect on regressive therapy. And finally, to finish, I want to show you this. This triangle that you can see here is from transactional therapy, transpersonal therapy, analysis, transactional. It tells you that between humans, we communicate with each other in a dramatic way. When a patient comes here to work and on sexual abuse, most of them didn't came for that. They came here to work on a different problem. But the problem that they had was this role, because the dramatic triangle tells us that we perform different roles. It has no conscience that the victim is on one of the sides of the triangle. They think it's money problems or problem with their partner or health or psychology. He's a victim of his or her emotions. It's very common this on the human. We develop these problems in a very dramatic way. It can be somebody that we got injured or a kidnap or an abuse, but you can be something that is more subtle. That you can be a victim of your partner not loving you, or your employer treating you badly, or that the government uses me, or the judge, or the policeman. We are also playing the role of the victim, and we don't notice. Past lives, when the patient works on them, also it's more frequent for them to play the victim role. Also, in past lives or in the present life, it's frequent that if you're victim too much, you start getting bored, you start getting angry, you get so much rage that you become an aggressor because you want revenge, because you've been hurt so much that you want to start doing it. Or I become an pursuer because I want to do justice. I become in a just, and I want to get free. I get. I want that I become the abuser, or I feel that I'm being abused. I guess it's very easy to find injustice. You just turn on the TV, and you can observe this dramatic triangle with a relationship in this way. What is important? That we don't know that they're roles, that is not our true essence. And when we know that they're roles, we can unidentify ourselves from that role. And a victim experience is not enough to be a victim. You have to feel a victim. What do I want to say with this? That you have to feel impotence, you feel misunderstanding, you feel sadness, you feel like nobody's helping me, that I'm alone. That's the victim role.
When I start to realize about that is the victim role, that's the first step. I'm not that I'm experienced, therefore I can get out of there. In past life and in present life, we tend to repeat this error once and once again, and we interchange them. We acquire a behavior pattern thanks to an experience that we suffer as a victim. That's a way of being, mandates, mind programs that we repeat these roles. What's important is to know this, and what I want to communicate to the people that can be watching this and themselves have gone through the traumatic experience, and specifically sexual abuse implies a lot more than we can see and perceive as the testimonies of the affected ones. As I was saying, this implies shattering of the soul, a loss of this in an essence, and the vital energy is what we have to live. And as Jose said, it's as if we had the half of our battery, and that's why we struggle so much to do this stuff. And I am confused. I don't have clarity. It's as if I put my hand over my face and I struggled to breathe, and I couldn't live with all of my energy with me. And also the experience of sexual abuse implies this vulnerability that we can be victims of non-physical entities. We don't realize about it either. And also the experience of sexual abuse implies the creation of mind programs that are self-limiting, which we call mandates, mind programs that makes me repeat the experience time and time again. But the good news is that the fragmented soul that can be
se puede
recovered,
desprogramar
this can be deprogrammed,
y la energía
and the
física se puede
physical energy
expulsar.
can be
Lo podemos limpiar de
expulsed,
todo
and we
eso.
can clean it all.
La experiencia, yo considero que la
I think
experiencia de
that
abuso
the
sexual es
experience
una
of
experiencia
sexual abuse
transversal a la
is
vida. Es algo que
transactional
vamos
for
a tener que
life, and
vivirlo
it is something that
y
we have to live and
sobrepasarlo para
overcome it to the
aquellos que se
ones
lo
that
propongan, por supuesto.
propose it.
Eh, la experiencia de
And
terapia
the experience
regresiva
of
es una experiencia breve. Es
regressive
corta, pero es
therapy
muy
is brief,
efectiva. Hizo un gran
but
impulso
it's
para
very
salir de estos
effective, and
roles.
it's a great drive
Sin
to get
embargo,
out of
muchos
these roles.
pacientes
However,
a veces
many
hacen
patients
actividades complementarias como
do the
psicoterapia u
complementary
otro tipo de
activities
actividades
like
complementarias que le ayudan
psychotherapies
a
and other
complementar
kinds
esto.
of
Otros
activities.
pacientes hacen varias
And
sesiones,
other
que es lo que
patients
más
do a lot
recomiendo
of
yo,
sessions,
porque esto
which
tiene
is what
muchas
I
caras.
recommend the most
No
because this
solamente
has
es el
a
abuso
lot of
físico en la
got not
infancia,
only the
a veces
abuse
está relacionado con experiencias de vidas
that
pasadas
happens
y como
in
ya
the
saben,
childhood.
hay
Sometimes
entidades
it
involucradas.
happens in past lives, and there are other entities
Cada
involved.
paciente lo va a hacer a su manera
Each
y va a
patient
llegar
is
hasta
going
donde
to
quiera.
do it their way, and they're
Todo
going
esto,
to get
el ser
where they
consciente de
want.
todo esto que
And
pasa,
being
implica
conscious
un
about
autoconocimiento.
everything that
El
happens here
autoconocimiento
implies
implica
self-knowledge,
crecimiento personal,
and this implies
saber quién es uno.
personal
Finalmente,
growth
el
and
llevar
to
a sanar
know
me
who
implica que
you
yo
are.
crezca, que
And
me desarrolle.
starting to
Y yo
heal
quisiera invitar a
implies
la
to
gente
know this.
a,
And I would
a
like to
pasar
invite
del
people
estrés
to come
postraumático
from
al
PTSD
crecimiento
to
postraumático, que
PTSD
es como el
growth,
culmine de la
which is
sanación.
the ending of
Muchas
healing.
gracias a todas, a
Thanks,
todos.
everyone.
Y ahora
And
podemos
now
hacer
we can
preguntas.
do a lot of questions.
Gracias, gracias.
Thank you. Thank you.
Si es que hay preguntas, yo feliz.
If there are any questions, I'm happy to help.
¿Cómo podemos hacer
How can
consciente
we make
nuestro
conscious
sistema de
our
creencias?
belief system?
Yo tengo varios
I have a
métodos,
lot
no
of
es el único.
methods. It's not the only one.
Lo primero
The
es
first one is to
decidir ser
decide to be
absolutamente honesto
absolutely
conmigo
honest with
mismo,
myself.
porque los
Because
humanos
humans,
somos
we are
espectaculares para
spectacular for
mentirnos a nosotros
lying to
mismos. Nos
ourselves. We
mentimos con
lie
mucha
to
facilidad.
ourselves very
Entonces, lo
easily.
primero es
So the first
decidir
thing is to
ser
decide to
honesto
be
conmigo mismo.
honest.
Cuando yo soy
When
honesto
I'm
conmigo,
honest
me
with
pongo a escuchar
myself,
mis
I start
pensamientos,
to hear my thoughts,
me pongo a escuchar
and
mis
I start to
emociones,
hear
me pongo a
my
observar mis
feelings, and I
conductas.
start to
Y ahí
observe
está
my
lo que yo creo,
behaviors,
lo que
and there
siento,
is
porque
what
como
I
dije,
think and what I
lo que yo
feel.
creo,
Because
lo
as I
voy a
said,
vivir.
what I believe, I'm going to live.
Mis creencias
My
inconscientes se
unconscious
manifiestan
beliefs
en el
are
mundo, en
expressed
el
in
mundo
the
consciente, en mi
conscious
realidad.
world, in my reality.
Entonces, eso es lo primero
So
que
that's
digo.
the first thing
Ser
I say,
honesto con
to
uno
be
mismo,
honest with
decidirlo
yourself and to
y
decide to be,
observar con
and
honestidad mi
observe
mundo, mi experiencia. Ahí están
honestly
las creencias.
with my world and the beliefs.
Aquí hay otra pregunta.
Here we have
Luego
another
de asumir el
question.
rol de
After
víctima, ¿has
assuming
llegado a
the
algún
victim
caso
role, have you
donde la
get
víctima
to
se reconozca como victimario en una
a
vida
case
pasada?
where the victim recognizes themselves as a
Gracias por la
victim in their
pregunta.
past life?
He
Thank
tenido
you
uno y no
for
dos
your
más
question.
casos
I
en
have
casos de abuso
had
sexual
in
que
two
he
cases
ido a
of
ver a
sexual
victimarios.
abuse where I have gone to see aggressors,
Ha sido muy difícil para ellos.
and it has been
Pero
really
mira,
difficult for them,
los
but
dos
they have
casos que
come
tuve
there. And
llegan
the two cases I've had,
almas
they come
obsesoras
with
y
obsessor
les dificultan
souls,
mucho el trabajo.
and
De hecho,
they
ninguno
have
de
a
ellos llegó
really
a terminar el
difficult
trabajo.
work, and actually none of
Hicieron una
them have
regresión y no
finished their
volvieron
work,
más.
and they did a
Y
regression,
tenían
and
almas
they didn't
obsesoras.
come back anymore, and they had obsessor souls.
A propósito de esta pregunta, yo quiero
Regarding this
hacer un
question, I want
cuestionamiento abierto.
to
No
do
pretendo
an
una
open
respuesta, pero
question.
como
I
sociedad
don't want to
llevamos
get the
siglos
answer, but as
castigando a los pederastas.
society,
Siglos.
we have been
Y cada vez
centuries
el índice de
punishing
abuso es mayor.
pederasts, but
No digo que no haya que
we have
encerrarlos,
more
ejecutar justicia,
percentages of
pero
them.
tal vez
I don't
también
say
deberíamos
that
sanarlos.
we should
Porque
enclose
un
them, but
pederasta que no se
we
sana,
should
si lo
heal them.
matamos, va a volver a
Because
nacer
if we
y va
kill
a
them,
seguir siendo el rol.
they're
O se va a
going
convertir
to
en víctima.
reborn,
Lo mismo
and
con
they're
las
going
víctimas.
to
Creo que como sociedad
do it again,
hay que
or
enfocarse
they're
más
going
en
to
la
be
sanación.
victims. So I think we have to focus on healing.
Aquí Claudio Castro
certainly. Here, Claudio Castro said how can we treat the aggressors? Do you think that they have been a victim? In these cases that arrived and with these patients that had been because they were already fighting against it, generally in the childhood they were both victims. And then we have the dramatic triangle that we have through the transactional analysis. The victims become the victimers. And we see in regressive therapy and also in other currents or fields that the abusers have been abused in their childhood. And I would like to know that if you apply the technique of getting out the abuser so that they stop being in the victim role. Yeah, that's what I explained in the energetic work. Well, we have a lot of procedures, but many times I detect the presence, the energetic presence of the abuser in the patient very fractally, and that is interfering in the thoughts and that is manipulating in one way or another the patient. And I also work with therapeutic, therapeutical maneuvers, as Viviana said in the morning, of putting a pillow. And we also work like that, and we use as many methods as possible because so that the patient can live the experience as if it's happening right now, so that they can feel the minimal details and and they can finally finish the experience. And there's where the manual maneuver points to.
If there's another question, is there any book that you can recommend to us? To, oh, my professor, José Luis Kabuli, he's got 6 books. Sadly, I cannot find one that is from the perspective of regressive therapy that is specific on this topic. But the one from José Luis mentions this, and the technique is the same one that I acquired from him. Is that the 95%? Can the pillow be used with the parents? It depends on the situation. I don't remember using it, but this is not. But therapy is never the same for every patient. In the future, I can see that it's going to be beneficial for the patient on this stage of the therapy, then I'm going to use it, but it depends on the situation, what had happened, because you have to recreate the experience. So that's why we use a pillow or a handkerchief. It depends on what happens. Of course, there's a question about the fractal. How do you detect this? Well, you can search in Google what a fractal is. That's a system that it has self-similitude. The total part is the same as the most little part, and don't see that the soul is a fractal because I cannot see it, but it acts like as one. Because when the child leaves the body and observe the experience from the outside, it's like the child that's being abused. It's like we just separate. That comes from dissociation, fragmentation. There's a separation. The child leaves the experience, becomes an adult, and that part, that fractal, stays frozen on that experience. And in a way, is connected, not totally separated, and is affecting the adult that is growing up. This fragmentation and recovery of the soul come from the shamanic wisdom. The shamanic wisdom, according to the anthropologist, is being done since 40 years ago and is still being done today. And they noticed that when a tragic event happened, you can see the fragmentation of the soul. And shamans were the ones that recovered that part of the soul. They did this astral travel and will blow it back into the patient. And in regressive therapy, we do that the same. The patient itself can notice where is that fractal, and he brings it back himself. The therapist tells him how. If you give the patient direction. Yes, the diagram that I'm seeing here is the same. The hologram that I'm seeing here is the same. We are like a hologram, a fractal. The experience tells me this, but it's not something that I can prove because I cannot take a picture. I only know this from experience. Is there any recommendation for our patients that are linked and stuck in a tragic experience that I joined for the whole family through the experience that is sexual abuse? And this is my personal experience, and yes, it's evident. There's a lot of evidence that this is transgenerational. It's very common to see that when you do a research that not only the patients have been abused, but also the mom, their grandma, the great grandmother. What do I believe? That if one of the clan stops this, it's going to benefit the whole clan. Because what I have discovered when I found the energy of their grandmother or the great grandmother working on my patients is that that mother is working on the experience so they can leave the victim role. And if the granddaughter does this, it's going to stop this karmic process and transgenerational load. So what you have to do is you have to do personal work and heal. If one of them does it, it's not only going to help this clan, it's going to help every woman in the world, because if one heals, everyone heals. A person that is healed, she can transmit a different energy. So it gives this energy to the neighbor, to the person working on the grocery store, and everyone. And if we have more healed people, we're going to have a better energy for the whole world. Very good. Congratulations to you also, Francisco. And other questions that we have received today, we're going to leave for tomorrow so we can answer at the round table. Thank you. Thank you all.